Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Crafty Crow Show. Today's video is going to be another Harlan County history episode. In today's video, we're going to do the Knee-High Bottling Company, or as most of us around here know it as the RC plant. Got some history on the building, I'm going to show you some shots of the building. Couldn't get inside, but that's alright. And interviewed some of the people that worked there and that owned it. So we're going to tell the history of the building. We're going to give you kind of an insight on how the bottling process worked and share some of the stories of the guys that actually worked there and made it what it was. So stick with us, come with us, and I hope you enjoy this next video. This is the Crafty Crow Show. So here we are. You can see the RC building is behind me. It's been closed since the mid-90s. For a little bit of history on it, back this street and over is where I grew up till I was about 16. The corner of the building right here is where I would stand and catch the bus to go to high school at Kaywood until I was old enough to drive. So drove by this place all my life, up and down this street here, you know, seen the guys working every day and stuff. I can even remember these front windows here that you see behind me, and we'll get a better view of them here in a minute. Is where the bottling line was. You could actually walk down the street here and stand and watch them bottle the pop as it came through, which I always thought was cool when I was little. Mr. Carmichael was one of the sons of the original owner that started the RC Cola business. So he's gave us all this information. So this building was built in the 1920s to be a hotel. It was originally a hotel. Here in Loyall, and I'll pan around here and show you in a minute, the entrance to the train yard and stuff was here, and a lot of the workers would come in and out. And you would constantly have people flowing. Where this was such a busy place in the 20s, they decided to build this hotel. This whole downstairs where all these windows were was one big open restaurant, he said. And then upstairs was where the the tenants would stay in the hotel rooms and everything were. Beckham Carmichael acquired the building in 1936. His father originally worked for the L&N Railroad. He was a fireman on the old steam engines. His job was shoveling coal into the boilers. He married JB's mother in 1926. They moved into one of the many boarding houses that lined County Pike Road in those days. He says later they moved into their house near the school over in Loyall, on the corner of Chad and Maypother Streets. During the Great Depression, his dad was laid off at the L&N. To support his family, he did several jobs for the next few years. One of his jobs was selling RC Colas that he picked up at Millsboro RC plant, and he bought them to Harlan to sell. RC Cola became very popular. He says Dad realized the potential of Harlan County as the Depression was ending, and in 1936 he drove to Columbus, Georgia to the RC Cola Corporation and convinced them to give him the franchise for RC Cola in Harlan. Around that time, the building had shut down as a hotel and became available on the market for sale. So Mr. Carmichael bought the building and converted the downstairs portion into a bottling facility. He said the upstairs he converted into left as hotel rooms, turned them into apartments, and rented them for several years to help offset the cost until the business got going. As business expanded, he used the upstairs rooms as supplied storage rooms. The one extra little thing that Mr. Carmichael had sent me that I had never known, in 1936, when Beckham Carmichael acquired the Harlan County franchise for RC, he also acquired some beer franchises for Harlan County. He went to Cincinnati and got the Burger Beer franchise for Harlan. He also went to 3 Louisville breweries to acquire franchises for Harlan. They were Fall City Beer, Ortales 92 Beer, I think that's Ortales, and Fairs Beer. One of the delivery trucks had the Fairs Beer slogan printed on the side of the truck. It said, "It's always fair weather," is what the slogan said. Harlan had legal beer sales in the 1930s and 40s. He said he thinks those beers no longer exist, but during those years, Fairs Beer was the top-selling beer in Kentucky. So the RC Cola building was also used as a beer warehouse for a few years, and sent me this picture with it of the Fairs beer bottle and some of their little, bottle openers and things. When the business ended and they shut down, upstairs there was still, I guess, bathtubs and stuff from the apartments. One of the bathtubs that were up there, they sold to my grandfather, John Lewis, which sits at the house now as one of my flower tubs. So I thought that was pretty interesting that one of those tubs actually come from there. He says his brother Willard, and he continued the business after their dad retired, continued the RC business. Says his dad called him JB, So that's why everybody that worked here called him JB's, but most everybody else calls him James. Let's see, he says the Carmichael family RC Cola business ended in June of 1998. They rented the building to RC Cola Louisville as a warehouse for a few years. And when they, RC left, they sold the building to a local mechanic. So that's kind of how the progression of the building's been. I think it's changed hands a couple of times, and was unable to get into the building. We tracked down the owner, but they said they were unable to let us in. So, I mean, like I said, that's fine. We're still going to look at the outside and give a good story. None of the bottling equipment or anything's left in there. That all got, you know, sold off and everything to other places. So my guess is this is kind of a hollow building anyway. There's nothing really to see in there. So we're not going to be out too much by not seeing it. So that's the history of the building. Let's get into the story of how all this worked and the men that done it. They would get originally, years ago, there's all kinds of little sidings and stuff right here. And one of these sidings, they would deliver all the sugar and anything else they needed for the making of the soda pop, or the pop as we call it here in Eastern Kentucky. And Mom told me stories about Papa. Said that that was one of the things he hated the most because it was so labor intensive. It was 100-pound bags of sugar that would come off of this, and they would have to load it off the train cars, load it onto a flatbed truck, and then just drive it this short distance back over to the building. And then to get it upstairs, I guess they had to manhandle it. There was no conveyor or anything at the time Papa worked here. Mom told me that he started working at Chapel's Dairy and then started working here before he went to Korea. I reckon Mr. Carmichael told him when he got back from the Army, if he hadn't got lazy, he'd give him a job back. So, okay, now we get into the bottling process. All this information and a bunch of these pictures was provided by Mr. Don Samuels here. And Don started working in 1974 at the RC plant. Worked his way up. He said, you know, you had to start at the bottom. He worked his way up, started at a bottle straightener, then worked up to the caser, then loading trucks. Then he was a relief driver. And finally, in 1982, he got his own truck route, and he took over the Cumberland route. So any of you from Cumberland are probably familiar with Don here. Worked on that route until 1996 when I guess they stopped delivering pop. He kind of walked us through the process, and I'm going to try to walk you all through it. I've got some pretty good pictures of a bottling line, so it helped me to understand how it worked, so maybe it'll help you all. So starting out, you know, every delivery guy, when they would go to a store, they would pick up all the empty bottles, and I'll show you those here in a second, but this was kind of one of their order forms, and Don said that here was everything that they carried at the warehouse. All the different size bottles and stuff, and this was their entire inventory was right here. They would fill one of these out for an order and take it back with them, and that would be for the next day, I guess, or the next delivery that was scheduled. That's how they would get the order set. Here's a picture of Papa again, John Lewis. You can see here on the right, here's all those bags of sugar. It looks like that they would unload from the train cars that I was talking about. Not sure which building this was in or anything. I've not been able to really orient it on how it is, but looks like Papa, this picture was early 1950s. Looks like he was unloading a bunch of empty bottles here after one of his routes and getting ready to bring them back. Papa delivered up at Everett's and delivered in Wallins. I think that he had those two routes. And a lot of people back then knew him as Red. I think his hair had a red tinge and stuff back when he was younger, so everybody knew him then as Red. So here's the empty case of the bottles, a little bit closer view. It was a pretty good system. I mean, you had the glass bottles. People would bring them back for a deposit. You would drop them off at whatever store. They would store them there. Then when the guys would come and deliver the pop, they would pick up the empties to take back to the plant to be recycled. So here's the first picture of the plant. All these pictures come from a plant in Dublin, Texas, I believe it was. I don't know if that's the home of Dr. Pepper. I didn't honestly read through that too good, but they have a whole museum with the entire bottling line set up. So if any of y'all are ever in Texas, in Dublin, Texas, you can go and visit this. It looked like a great place. Actually might be on my list someday down the road to go see. But a lot of the equipment and the way everything was set up in this one looks like the same equipment for the most part that they had there at Loyall. So what you've got here is the back. Everything on this side that you see is the back side of the house. This is where the bottles would enter and they would exit over in this area. But on the front side was kind of the sterile area where all the bottling was done. So they would bring in all the empties, and this was probably the bottle straightener thing. Any of this information, Don or anybody else that's watching this, if you guys have better knowledge than I do of how this works, please let us all know so we know if we're on the right track or not. But this is kind of what I've been able to piece together happens. All the empty bottles come here and they get put on this conveyor. And this is the back side of the bottle washer. And here's a close-up view of the front side of the washer as the bottles would come out. You see all the bottles lined up right here. This is where they would come out clean. I mean, it would wash them, I'm sure sterilize them and everything. And they would come out clean bottles like brand new and go all the way through this machine. You'll see here in a second. And then they would travel down this conveyor. Now you can see back here in the background how long this machine was. This is from the first picture back in here. They would come all the way through this and get sterilized, then come down this conveyor. And it was just all one conveyor. Here you see this is the bottle capper, and this is the filling station. And they would go on around and then go right back out to the back after they were filled. So here's the filling station. What would happen here, the soda mix and everything was up in here. These bottles would come in. All this machinery here was spinning around in circles. So it would bring the bottles in, spin them in here first. These would come down as it rotated around, raise the bottles up, fill them with soda, and it would come back out this side like you see here. And then it would proceed on over to the capper. So there's a better view of the capper. You've got hopper up here that Don said that they would have to load all the bottle caps and stuff in. And I think you can see right here, that's all the bottle caps in a row. After they got filled, they would come over, go through this capper, and it would stamp the cap down on it, and then just send them on through. So at this point, all the bottling was done. Here's another view of how they kind of turned the corner. Like I said, I don't know exactly if this was set up the same at Loyall. I do remember like this track here, I can remember the bottles jiggling and going down through there and kind of hearing the sounds outside when you'd see it though. So they come around the corner and went down through here. I'm not sure how Loyall was set up, but at this point, they would come to the inspection station. Now, there was two inspectors, I remember. Don said one's name was Margaret Geary that worked forever, and there was a Miss Grable. She lived on the street behind us. And he said that they worked as inspectors there at the RC plant and worked there for years. But what would happen, the bottles would come down the line. There was a big light back here, and you'd have an inspector sitting here, and their main job was to look, make sure there was no cracks in the glass, no debris or anything in there. It would illuminate the entire bottles so you could see all the way through them to make sure it was like a quality inspection station is what it was, to make sure that everything was good, everything looked right before they went on out to get packaged. Now here in this picture, you can see there's the bottle capper, and you can see the front of the washer, the bottle washer. This was the old picture right before, I guess, they removed everything Mr. Samuels gave. So I thought this was cool. It's kind of set up in the same way, it looks like. But if you can see right here, there's a sign hanging. There used to be, I remember two of these signs hanging that says, "Do not talk to the inspectors." Because, they were having to concentrate on seeing those bottles and making sure that every bottle was good and safe for everybody to drink. And here is actually one of the signs, the "Do not talk to the inspector" signs, that come from the RC plant. My Aunt Rose was able to acquire this, and she's got it on display at her house still. So I thought that was cool and something I wanted to add in for you. But then after they went through the inspection station, they come out. I think this is set up as kind of an inspection station that they had there, but they would come out here, and that is where the caser job would come in. They would put them all back in the cases, get them all stacked back up, and then send them out ready to go back out and get shipped out. And after all the bottling work was done, they put it back on the trucks, took it right back out to the store, and the process started over. Here you've got Raymond Fidel Morales. This is in June of 1968, it looks like. It looks like he's got all of his bottles, getting ready to go in the store, and somebody snapped a picture of him. And this kind of brings us into the thing of, we've talked about how the business come about. We've talked about how the bottling process worked. But now let's talk about the next important part, which was the men that went out and delivered the pop and was the face of the company. Mr. Morales was, his route was Kaywood, Catterns Creek, and across Pine Mountain. He delivered all the little stores and everything up through there. Don also says that his big grocery stores back in the day was Kaz Walker, which, for any of you that don't know, Kaz Walker is where CVS Pharmacy is now. He also served the Kroger's, and Kroger's was where MCHC Farm or MCHC Clinic is out at the mall now. That used to be Kroger's. Okay, here you've got a picture of some of the guys. You can't tell where it was taken, but you've got Don Samuels here on the left. Then you have Eugene Collins. I grew up across the street from Eugene. Me and his youngest daughter was the same age. I always knew him as Rail. His nickname was Rail. If any of his kids or grandkids are watching, or anybody might can inform us how he got that nickname. I never did hear, but that's what I always called him growing up, was Rail. Then you have David Cavins there in the background, and Raymond Reed Jr. there in the hat and the green shirt. These guys, I'll go ahead and give you the names here. You got David Cavins on the left, then Raymond Reed Jr., then Gary Dean there in the green and white shirt, and Eugene Collins again. This was probably in the 80s when this one was taken. This is outside that big white door that you can still see there at the building. That was the bay door. So this was the main building that we're talking about now. And this old truck, I looked for pictures of some of the old delivery trucks. This is all I could find, or this is all that was gave to me. I couldn't find any on the internet actually, but I can remember these trucks. So I think this was the 80s color scheme and everything. And it looks like they were trying to make a repair to it. These guys did whatever they had to do to keep everything moving. They all pitched in together. Didn't matter what their jobs was to move the company forward. This is back in the day when people cared more about helping each other out, and it wasn't the owners against the employees and stuff. It was everybody was in this together, and they wanted to make it good. They had pride. They had pride in their company. They've snapped this picture while these guys were out here trying to fix this truck, I guess. Mr. Morales again. I don't know what grocery store. It looks like it's happy birthday balloon at the top, and I guess it's a Tweety bird down at the bottom. I don't have a backstory on this one, but I wanted to include this one because I thought it was a pretty funny picture. Here he is in front of the RC display that I'm sure he took care of. You can see his cart in the background, so they've surprised him with birthday balloons. These guys, when they went to these stores, no matter if it was the big stores or the little mom and pop stores that were all over this county at the time, they had relationships with these people. These people knew RC when they seen them. That's what they thought. Mr. Morales' nickname was the RC man. And I'm sure kind of all the guys on their routes, they had that nickname, but people seen them, they identified RC with them. So they were ambassadors for the company, RC as a whole, and ambassadors for the Harlan or the Loyall RC. They apparently loved him because they gave him, balloons and stuff and was celebrating his birthday for him. But he looked real happy, and I just wanted to include this picture because I like this picture a lot. Okay, this picture here was at Ken Moody's Steakhouse, which is now the Mexican Steakhouse here in Harlan. But a lot of events that took place at the steakhouse. I'm sure a lot of you remember the steakhouse because it's not been that long ago that it closed down. But this was August of 1987. This is the Loyall employees, the RC employees, having a Cheerwine soft drink introduction meeting. So apparently 1987 is when Knee High Bottling launched Cheerwine and introduced Cheerwine to the market. So they had a big party here, brought a bunch of Cheerwine because, these guys, of course, drank what they sold, and they wanted them all to have the Cheerwine, get their opinions, and plus they got a taste for it. So when they went to their customers trying to sell it and get them to buy the Cheerwine, they could tell them what it tasted like, if they liked it. So this was kind of a snapshot of 1987 with all the guys. Now here's a picture that was taken at Max and Baxter. You've got Papaw, which is John Lewis, here on the left, and this is when he was manager at the store there at Max. And then you have Kim Spurlock on the right doing the taste test. So it was a taste test challenge they done out in the lobby of the store. And some of the things I think are funny, you've got 68 cents for a 2 liter of RC. And, don't we wish that it was 68 cents anymore? And then I don't know if you can see it good, but here they had RC versus Coke Classic, which this was, if it was 1990, it probably wasn't too long after the new Coke thing happened and flopped bigger than all get out for Coke. So they started naming it Coke Classic again with the old formula. RC had 12 and Coke Classic had 7. So people definitely preferred RC over Coke, almost 2-1. And then you had RC and Pepsi. RC had 2, Pepsi had 3. So Pepsi was nudging ahead of RC in that one. But this outfit, a lot of people will probably remember Papaw from this era in his manager's uniform from down at Max. Because I can tell when I talk to people, if they refer to him as Red, it was during his delivering days. If they referred to him as John or something, it was usually here. And then if they referred to him as the buggy guy, they're talking about when he worked out at Don's and was just handing out buggies after he'd retired. So there's like 3 eras of him and I can tell how long somebody's known him by what they called him. Even after the plant shut down and, time had moved on, these guys shared a bond with each other. They worked every day with each other. They had all that teamwork and they shared a bond with each other. This picture, you've got Don Samuels on the left, Raymond Fidel Morales, and David Cavins. I'm not sure exactly where they are or anything, but these guys still stayed in touch with each other. They would get together with each other and still hang out and, I'm sure talk about the old days and stuff. And people still recognized them years later. I guess when you would see them, because I would do it some, when you'd see them, you'd kind of reminisce about when you would get a bottle opener to open a bottle of pop and it'd be glass and you drink it instead of just, twisting off a cap and everything. Here they are, all 3 of them together, hanging out. Del Morales there again on the left, Don Samuels there on the right, around an old RC cooler, just sitting around having a good time. You can see the knee-high peach here Miss Morales has, and that's actually that's probably one of my favorite things. I love the knee-high peach, and then the RC here. But this was one of the old coolers that would sit in probably these little stores, and they would have ice or something in there, and so you could just go in the store and get you a good ice cold RC and go on about your day. Probably grab you a moon pie while you was in there. This cake was made. Don said that I think a lady in Corbin or something done made it. As the years went on, of course, we all get older, and Mr. Morales had ended up in the nursing home out here in Harlan. So this was a party they threw for him. I'm not exactly sure if it was his birthday or not, but they threw him a party. This was the cake they had made for his party. There's Miss Morales here in the center, but you got Clarence Reed here, got Raymond Reed Jr., got David Cavins, and Don Samuels. So looking at the balloon, it was Miss Morales' birthday. So they had bought some of the RC paraphernalia and stuff they had out there and made him a big RC cake. And that's just an awesome looking RC cake. And just come out to the nursing home to see him and celebrate his birthday with him. And here you got a picture. Like I said, I'm not sure if this was other drivers or just employees or what. But starting to the left here, you got Clarence Epperson. You got Raymond Fidel Morales, Don Samuels, Raymond Reed Jr., David Cavins, Clarence Reed, and Larry Reed. Donna gave me this picture as kind of a picture of all of them. I don't know exactly where it was taken or anything, but it's another group of them just getting together, sharing memories, and reliving the old days, I'm sure. All these guys are, like I said, were the face of the company. I can't say it enough. And they brought joy with them every time. They wouldn't just delivering something in and out. There's something about pop delivery or however you would, I don't know how to word that. Everybody that I've ever met that delivered pop, whether it was these guys when I was little, even older, when they still deliver to the stores now, if I see them, they're always friendly. Everybody always laughs and cuts up with them and they have a good time. And it seems like it's different than other delivery people.
there must be something special and some kind of special bond with those guys, and they must really enjoy their jobs. So I wanted to show some pictures of some of the guys and how they, even after the plant had shut down and they had retired and everything, still stuck together and still held one another up and kept each other up. It's something that you don't seem to find everywhere anymore.
So there we go. As you can see, another part of Harlan County history that's long gone. Luckily, it's not been forgotten. I was able to talk to Mr. Samuels, Mr. Carmichael, and actually get some first-hand knowledge of the place. So the place was great. It gave people jobs. It was something the community enjoyed. But no matter how great a business is, the thing that makes a business is the men and women behind it. So I hope I done them some justice and gave them good enough credit, because those guys were the face of the company. I mean, they made contact with the customers. They're the ones that talk to people. It's your workers that make a company. I also want to give a special thanks to Mr. Samuels. He provided a sit down and interview with me and kind of explain how the whole process worked, and provided a bunch of videos. The Morales family, Miss Morales' granddaughter, provided me some pictures and things and was interested in the video. And Mr. Carmichael for giving the history of the building and how it all progressed into their hands and how things run and kind of a timeline of things. So all this together, guys, I think is going to be, better than getting in the building, just looking in the windows. There's nothing in there to see. But hopefully it's something that we'll all keep in our memories and remember for a long time. I hate to see it go. Don't know what the future of the building is or what it holds. We're talking a building that's pushing 100 years old now. So I'd say it'd take major money to renovate the place. I'm sure it could be something, but with the economy the way it is now, hard to say. It's hard to say what their plan is. But we've documented it. Hopefully the vandals can leave it alone, because it's, it's sentimental to especially a lot of us that live down here at Loyall. Anyway, quit rambling like I usually do. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the history and seeing everything about it, and hope you'll come along for the next one. Remember, as always, love one another as the good Lord tells you. We'll see you guys in the next video.